It's always showtime at BetMGM Sports. You can make your first bet risk-free up to $1,000 when you sign up with the code SHERDOG. Don't let another game day go by without having the ultimate sports betting app in the palm of your hand. Discover non-stop excitement with BetMGM's state-of-the-art technology and dozens of betting options, including live wagers, props, parlays, and much more. No matter what your favourite sport is or how you like to wager, find out why there's nothing like getting a W at the king of sportsbooks. Use the code SHERDOG and make your first bet risk-free up to $1,000. Download the BetMGM app and sign up today. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Arizona, Colorado, Washington, D.C., Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, New Jersey, Nevada, New York, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, or Wyoming only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire in 7 days from issuance. Excludes Michigan disassociated persons. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, Washington, D.C., Louisiana, Nevada, Wyoming, and Virginia. Call 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help. In Michigan, 1-800-GAMBLER. In Illinois, Indiana, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. In Tennessee, call the Red Line at 800-889-9789. In Mississippi, call 1-888-777-9696. Sports betting is void where prohibited. Promotional offers not available in Nevada. Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. My name is Sean Sheehan over here in beautiful Ireland. And we're going to talk about a beautiful London card coming up this weekend as Bellator 281 goes down over in the SSE Arena in Wembley. And it's a pretty good card. A lot of UK talent, a bit of Irish talent even, and a bit of American talent as well coming over to take some of those on. So the welterweight title is on the line in the main event. Obviously Amasov is over in Ukraine fighting at the moment, and he was supposed to fight MVP in the main event. Obviously that's not able to happen now, so Logan Storley steps in and the interim title will be on the line between himself and Michael Venom Page, and we will get into that fight and I'll break it down because I think it's a very big fight, a very important fight as well, especially I think for both guys, but especially for Michael Venom Page. There's a good few up-and-comers on this card as well, a few veterans and all of that, and I'll work my way up the card, so I'm going to start to the bottom, pick out a few fights that I really want to talk about, and we'll break down the card as we go. Let me know in the comment section below which fight you're most looking forward to on this card, which prospect you're most looking forward to, maybe if you're going to the card, maybe if you want to see Lyoto Machida or someone like that, which legend you're looking forward to seeing as well. Get involved and we'll keep the chat going. So a few standouts on the undercard. Obviously, the undercard starts with Lanchana Green against Kira Penco. Green has been around the scene for a good, but she's a name that always sticks out. Maybe because her name is Lanchana Green, it's a kind of a cool name. But she's been around the UK scene fighting for a while. She's 4-4-1. Penco is out of Italy. She beat Caterina Delizza on her last fight. That was at the Lima versus MVP fight back in 2021. And, she had fought Danny McCormack from here in Ireland before that as well on the McCourt versus Ruiz card here in Dublin. So I've seen her obviously fight up close and personal. And she went the 3 rounds with Danny McCormack and that, and you'd probably slightly favour her here based on that and based on her win over Delizza as well in her last fight. Lanchana Green, she's probably a little bit better than that record suggests, but it'll probably be a fun fight to open up the card. After that as well, Andriuskevicus is on the card against David Trallero. you probably know Arunas. He lost to Chadwick last time up, but he came into that off of like, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-fight win streak. He 2 years off before the 2 fights. He's coming out of London Shoe Fighters as well, so everyone knows, lads coming out of that gym are going to be very, very good. And he beat the likes of James Mulhern and Denise Sutherland and others as well, on his way up Fraser Opie and the local scene. So he's a pretty good all round fighter. 11 KOs on his ledger there. Trallero is out of Spain, and this is his first one in Bellator. He's won his last 3 in a row, so it'll be interesting to see how he looks here on that one, starting out the undercard. Probably the biggest name then on the first 4 or 5 fights, Chadwick. He's fighting Maciej Rozanski. I suppose people might know Rozanski for his win over Will Fleury in the middle of the pandemic. Will got a 1-fight release, I think it was at the time. He ended up losing that fight to Maciej, and then he went back to Bellator and stuff, and now he's obviously a champion UARs. But for Maciej himself, he won that fight and he won 2 more after it as well. And he's earned his chance now. Back in the day, he fought in Bellator against Jack Hermanson. He lost that fight, but he's fought Mahmoud Muradov, who people might know, and others as well down through the years. So it's probably, he's fought in ACB and he's fought in Babylon and EFM. There's some very, very big shows, but his first shot in Bellator now, and we'll see how he goes in this one. I think it'll probably be good. He's heavy wrestler, good submissions and things like that. So we'll see how that one goes. Chadwick, an absolute ball of muscle, just an animal of a fighter altogether. I think he went into that last fight against Arunas, so I just mentioned, as the underdog, but ended up winning it. And that was obviously in Dublin as well. And Chadwick is a kind of a great character, and to see me around for a long time. Fought Fabian Edwards, fought Carl Moore, and has fought in Cage Warriors and ACB and all sorts of different places. So it's good to see him getting another shot here and another big fight in London as well. Andrew Fisher is stalwart as well of the local scene. He's 18-8-1. Honestly, if you'd asked me Andrew Fisher's record, I probably would have said about 30-12-7 or something like that. It seems like he's been around forever and ever and ever. He's on a good run at the moment. The last one was an eye poke against Robert Whiterford, but he beat Ashley Grimshaw before that. He had 2 wins in ACB, one of them over Nicholas Backstrom, who we know from the UFC. And, he was, Norman Park is the only guy who's beaten him here in the last, 7 years, we're 8 years. Jesus, I didn't think it was that long of a run. But yeah, Norman Park, the only defeat of his in the last 8 years. That mad knockout against Artem Lobov was before that in the card I was at in Dublin. And that seems like a long time ago, but it'd be interesting. Obviously he took a few years off in between that, didn't fight between 2017 and 2020. He came back with that win against Ashley Grimshaw, but it'll be interesting to see him back, is when he's fighting Attila Korkmaz, coming out of Germany here. He fought in UAE Warriors as well. He won his last fight and he's coming over here now, so it'll be interesting to see that fight as well. I feel like I'm saying it'll be interesting to see all of these fights in the undercard. One fight, Irish fans will be very, very interested to see. Charlie Ward, he's taking on Alan Carlos here. Charlie has been he's been everywhere, fighting in the UFC. Big run now and a good run going for him in Bellator. Obviously fought in the local scene here, but I think for Charlie it's a big fight because he had a bad injury. I believe it was a shoulder injury he had. He was supposed to fight, I think it was the Dublin card, but look, he hasn't fought since October 2020, so it's been a good while out of the cage for Charlie. And he was on a great run, he was in the rankings. He was kind of on his way up. There was talks of maybe a Fabian Edwards fight and others. I think that was the fight that was made. It wasn't the Fabian Edwards fight, yeah. But there was talks of, big fights for Charlie. And since he came to Bellator, he's on an unreal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-1 since he went to Bellator. The only loss, a decision loss to Pietro Panini. He's beaten Justin Moore, Jamie Stevenson, Andy Manzolo and others as well. Johnny Jitsu famously, as we all kind of remember when McGregor jumped into the cage. But it's been a great run for Charlie, and this the recovering from the injury, I suppose, will be probably the biggest part here. But Alan Carlos as well. Went back and watched a few of his fights. You know, he's fought in Cage Warriors and other places. He's been around for a long time now, Alan Carlos. He's 38 years of age. He hasn't fought since 2018. That fight I watched with Norman Perezi. He won that fight, a very close fight. You know, Alan Carlos is a guy who, you know, I don't think there's any mistake in what either of these two guys will want to do. Charlie will want to keep it standing and land big shots, and Alan Carlos will want to get the fight to the ground. Out of his 10 wins inside the distance, 8 of them are by submission, so that tells you all you need to know. He's very, very good on the ground. Now, saying that as well, Charlie has some good takedowns and he's good top position and good ground and pound as well, so I don't think Charlie will be out of it. And Carlos, you know, that fight against Norman Perezi, it stayed on the feet for most of it and he ended up winning it. So it's not like, you know, I'm not saying both of them are useless in the other area, far from it. But I think Charlie's a very, very good boxer. Carlos is an okay boxer, okay to good. Whereas Carlos on the ground is obviously a BJJ black belt and all that, so I'm sure he'd be hoping to get Charlie down and try to submit him. But as I say, like, I think Charlie, he's the last time he fought in Dublin, I remember we were talking to him afterwards and he was talking about how he's improved in his strength and conditioning, and you know, they had him running hills and running down laneways and all there in the Midlands and stuff, and his condition has improved an awful lot, and I think that is something you'd seen in Charlie's recent fights. I think it's been very good, and he's been kind of smarter game planning as well. As I mentioned, throwing in a few takedowns and doing a few things a little bit different maybe than you'd expect, and I think it's really benefited him. And look, I think honestly, if I had to pick this, and I'll be doing the betting show obviously later on in the week, I think Alan Carlos is a pretty good matchup for Charlie, to be honest, because I don't think he has the best takedowns in the world. Obviously once he gets there and once he gets to the ground, he's very, very good. But I think that's the area maybe where Charlie would struggle if there was someone who was a very, very good wrestler, you know, as anyone would struggle. But I just don't think Carlos is that, and I don't think he'll catch him in that way. Now, all it takes is one. Carlos is very good at catching leg kicks. So maybe if you're Charlie, would avoid that, and, you know, one slip or one fall to the ground is all it takes against someone like Carlos. But I think Charlie will be faster than him on the feet, and I think once he is, I think the power will kind of tell, and I think he'll land a good few shots in Carlos, and maybe could be a late finish or a decision win for Charlie Ward here would be my prediction. But that's one of those fights that it's a big one for Charlie Ward, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he goes in that one. Alfie Davis versus Tim Wilde is the next up in the lightweight division. I'm a big fan of Alfie Davis. I like his attitude. I like his style. He's out of London Shoot Fighters as well. He lost to Alexander Shibley in his last fight back in the summer of last year, and before that he had beaten Coney Wanless, who a lot of people think a lot of, and he's win over Daniel Scatizzi and others as well in Bellator, and he's just a good, solid, all-around fighter. And you could say the same, I suppose, for Tim Wilde. You know, be another guy who's been on the scene for a long, long time now, 18 fights deep in his career. He's beaten Yves Landau, we saw last week on Bellator Paris, and he's beaten Charlie Leary, who we also saw as well. You know, he's only lost in the last, 6 fights is to Bryn Primus back in 2019. So, you know, for the UK scene, that's a kind of another good matchup. You've kind of the Midlands against the London fighter there, so there'll be a bit of needle there, I'm sure. But I would fancy Alfie Davis, I think, in that one. Overall, I think they're not too dissimilar fighters. They'll both want to strike, and I think Alfie Davis might be a little bit younger and a little bit, quicker in that one. Kate Jackson against Elina Kallionidou is the next fight up. Kate Jackson, 35 years of age now, another person who's been around the scene for a good while. She's lost, to the last two challenger, and maybe not challenger, but Denise Kielholtz, who challenged before the last challenger, who is now the champion, and Elina McFarlane, who was the last champion as well. And she's had a tough run in Bellator. She fought Valerie Turno as well, and she lost those 3 fights, but she's won her other 3 fights in her 6th fight run in Bellator. So it's a big opportunity for her here again, coming back to her home country. Elina Kallionidou, don't know a lot about her. She has fought a couple of times in Bellator. I saw her fight once live against Beck Rollins. She probably did better than most people were thinking, but yeah, I'm not 100% sold on her, to be honest. She got her first win in Bellator last time out in the autumn of last year. But you know, and she had actually fought in Bellator before that as well. She fought Sinead Kavanagh and others. But yeah, I think this should be a handy enough one for Kate Jackson. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way I see that one going anyway. There's a lot of kind of stalwarts of the European scene in this card, and next up would be Oliver Enkamp, who I would class as that as well. 30 years of age now. You never think. I always think of Oliver Enkamp as kind of this young guy up and coming with, you know, really good jiu-jitsu, really good ground game. The problem in his last fight, he fought Kyle Crutchmere, who, you know, is one of the best up-and-coming wrestlers in Bellator, and they have a lot of them. You know, he went on a 3-fight win streak before that after coming out of the UFC off of a couple of losses. But, you know, I think he's one of these guys that I think people maybe underestimate a little bit, and he could come out and turn into a very, very good fighter. I think he's very good athleticism, a very good, you know, all-around fighter, and it'd be interesting this here against Mark Lemminger. He lost to Neiman Gracie last time out, and he's been on, you know, lost 3 of his last 4 in Bellator. But look, as I mentioned, Gracie was one of them, Amasov was the other one, Jaleel Willis was the other, so, you know, he'll be hoping to bounce back to winning ways here, and I think this could be an interesting and a good fight between the two of these. The undercard fight, I think, which I'm probably most looking forward to, apart from probably the Charlie Ward fight, but that's only because I'm Irish, is Daniel Weichel against Robert Whiterford. You know, again, I'll say 2 stalwarts of the maybe not Weichel, not so much the European scene, but a European stalwart, let's put it that way, with 54 fights. I watched him fight live last time against Pedro Carvalho here in Ireland, and it was a very good fight. Obviously, Carvalho ended up winning there, but, you know, Weichel, he's one of these lads that you look at him and he's a well-rounded fighter, and you think, okay, his striking is as good as his ground game and his submission. He's 22 submissions in his career, 5 knockouts, so maybe tells a little bit of a story. But if you're to only look at that story, I think you'd kind of take away from how good of an all-round fighter he is. You know, he's some great wins there, especially that run back in 2015 where he beat Karkanyan, he beat Emmanuel Sanchez, he beat Brian Moore, and before that he'd beaten Pat Curran, Desmond Green and others as well. So this guy is a really, really, really good fighter. And Robert Whiterford as well, another guy coming out of Scotland, and that kind of the great Scottish hope, I suppose, for a while. And he was in the UFC, and, you know, he won some, he lost some, had some good wills. You know, he knocked out Paul Redmond in that fight as well. Paul Redmond cut down a lot, lost to Darren Elkins, as most people do, and lost to Lucas Martinez as well, and got cut. And, you know, he went on a great run in ACB, winning 3 fights in a row, beating the likes of Ken Musa and others, and, you know, defeated Sam Cecilia before that unfortunate eye poke. You know, Whiterford is a hitter. You know, he hits hard. He's 39 years of age now as well. You'd never think it, you know. And him against Weichel, I think it's going to be one of those fights. Even though I said about all the submissions of Weichel, I think the two of these lads are going to strike. If Weichel does get it to the ground, okay, he'll probably have a bit of an advantage there, but I think it's going to be a fun matchup on the feet, and the two of them they're gonna go at it. Luke Traynor against Simon Biyong is the next one then. Biyong out of Italy. Lost his last fight in his Bellator debut to Christian Edwards, but was on a great run before that, winning 4 in a row in EFC and Risen and other places as well. All of his 6 wins inside the distance are all by KO. And Luke Traynor, this is one of the guys you always ask the people over in the UK, and they say, this is one of our guys, this is one of our next guys coming through. In only his 5th fight last time out, he fought Yannick Bahati, who's been around for a long, long time, and he beat him, you know, and he knocked him out in the 2nd round as well. So definitely an interesting name, and there's a reason why he's kind of high up the card here, so I definitely want to look out for on this one. He's actually, I'm just looking, I got the official card here, he's actually opening up the main card, so he's definitely one, you know, for the future to keep an eye on. At only 5-0, you know, very good fighter, very, very good. Right, let's get to the main card, and it's a main card that I'm really looking forward to. First of all, let me get Denise Kielholtz versus Kana Watanabe. You know, Kielholtz, to me, one of the best fights of last year against Juliana Velasquez, the recently dethroned champion. I really, really enjoyed that fight. You know, she was on a 4-fight win streak before that. Watanabe as well, you know, lost to the current champion, her only loss in her career in 35 seconds to Liz Carmouche. She was on a great run before that, obviously winning 10 fights in a row, but winning, you know, 2 in Bellator, and she'd won a couple in Deep and Rising and other places as well, and beating, you know, Ilara Joanna, who has impressed a few people in her career so far in Bellator. But you know, good fight. And look, this one, I think it's a pretty even matchup. I would fancy Kielholtz to win it, but it's one of those fights that I think will put the person who wins it in line. Because is the rematch going to happen for the title? It probably will. And who's going to be next? It could be the winner of this one. You know, you could see the loser fighting Elina McFarlane or something like that. So a big matchup here for both of these ladies in the flyweight division. Paul Daley, apparently his retirement fight here in London, and a big sadness, I suppose, came over me. I only found out, I actually asked Bellator any chance of the official card there. I was like, no, the Paul Daley Koreshkov fight fell out, and they were like, yeah, it happened 2 weeks ago. Somehow missed it, and I was like, okay, I better go, and I watched some Wendell Giacomo fights, which I did just before this, his new opponent, and that's very unfortunate. Like, it was supposed to be his retirement fight. Maybe it still is his retirement, but it's hard to see Paul Daley retiring now after this. You know, with this fight now, we'll talk about the fight in a second, but like, Paul Daley has had a great career. Maybe it's one to talk about next week instead of this week after the fight happens. But you know, in London, if he was to go out in a big win, I think it might be fitting for Paul Daley if he was to win it. But I feel like Daley has always been the type of guy, right? He has taken fights against anyone, any name, and sometimes that's great, and sometimes it's like, well, you end up fighting a lad who probably you shouldn't be fighting. Now, Wendell is probably that as well, but in terms of his ability, maybe not. But I'm talking in terms of ability sometimes as well, and I think he didn't like that, and I think maybe it's something he thought back on in his career and thought, shit, probably shouldn't have done that. You know, I probably should have taken a better fight. And I think he did it at times as well to try to get back in the UFC and try to get in the good books and you know, and different things. But I feel like he wanted to go out on a big fight and a big win to go out in his career. And the fact that he's kind of not getting that now, the big name anyway, and the big fight, I think that'll kind of that'll hurt him a little bit, and I think he'll be back. Well, I think all MMA retirements will be back, but I think this one especially. But anyway, we'll get to the fight. You know, we know Paul Daley. He wanted to stop a takedown. He wanted to throw his big left hook. He wanted to throw his jabs. He wanted to be landing those big power shots, and he'll get tired a little bit if he can't land them and he can't get the knockout, and that's it. That's Paul Daley. He's not the most complicated fighter in the world. He likes to land big shots. He likes to knock you out. He's good defensively and things as well at times. Wendell Giacomo, this guy, I was very impressed with him. Now, I could only find one of his fights, another kind of half a fight, and in some highlights as well. So what I did see, I was very impressed with. He's another one of these guys who comes out and he's throwing all these wild kicks to the body, head kicks, and then in the middle of it, he gets his opponent thinking, and he shoots in on a big double leg, and he takes him down. Vicious ground and pound, really good on top. He's a finisher as well. In that fight I watched with his opponent, the opponent hurt his knee. I think he hurt it kind of. Wendell was winning the fight handily anyway, and he was throwing a few leg kicks, but I think he kind of hurt it stepping back, and then Wendell just started blasting leg kicks at him, and eventually the guy ended up tapping out to it was a very, very bad injury, it looked, but Wendell did well to just attack it and go after it and get that finish. But all around, I was very, very impressed with him. I like his striking. He's not just one of these guys, see sometimes jiu-jitsu guys like, even a Verdum or someone like that. He throws these wild strikes just to maybe get the fight to the ground. And Wendell does that too, but he is great. It looks to me as someone who knows nothing about it, but he has great technique in his strikes, and he throws them with power and he lands with power, and it's not just wild strikes for the sake of wild strikes to get the fight to the ground. I think his strikes are useful, and he is definitely someone in that division I would be looking forward to going for. I'd love to see him fight MVP. We'll get to MVP in a second, but I would love to see that fight. I think it'd be a great fight. But I I actually think Wendell will win this fight against Paul Daley, to be honest. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes for Paul. I'm sure the UK crowd won't like me after saying that, but it's a good fight. This is going to be a fantastic fight. If it stays on the feet, and I actually don't think it will. I'll retract my fantastic fight for Paul Daley part anyway. Maybe it might be a fantastic fight for Wendell, but he has that takedown there, and I think he'll use it as well. Right, let's talk about the top 2 fights on the card. Lyoto Machida versus Fabian Edwards, and obviously the main event in. Fabian has been... He's had an iffy spell, I suppose, in Bellator. 9-2 now in his career. Lost the last 2 in a row to Austin Vanderford and Costello Vancinas. A very close split decision against Mike Shipman before that. And, he had some good wins. Luke Chadwick, Man United player. Lee Chadwick and Ken Kopinen and a few more before that in both Bellator and Bama. This is a massive fight for him because, a lot of the talk about Fabian has been about, he's going to be fighting for the title. He's one of the best in the world, but the 2 step-ups he took, he lost both of them, both very close. I actually thought the Vanderford fight was way closer than people thought. I thought, Vanderford was laying on top of him for a lot of that fight, actually landing very little. And Fabian, when he was able to land. The Costello Vancinas fight, I did think Costello won that one, to be fair, but it was a split decision, another close one as well. So it's time now for him, Musasi's a fight coming up in here who's against Johnny Eblin, I think. He just fought Austin Vanderford. It feels like Musasi is trying to fight 5 times a year, So a win here could earn either guy, especially Edwards, I think, a title shot. And you're fighting a legend, you're fighting a really, really good fighter, one of the best fighters ever in the history of mixed martial arts. But is he still that? Lyoto Machida, is he still that? It's a hard one. It's a hard one to say. Probably not. Let's be honest. Lost to Ryan Bader, Phil Davis, and Musasi. So it's not as if he's losing to nobodies, But Ryan Bader at 205, I don't think he is what he used to be, honestly. And Phil Davis is going to Phil Davis. A split decision with Musasi as well. So and that Musasi fight was a very fun one. But that was 3 years ago now at this stage, And he beat Chael and Rafael Carvalho and Vitor Belfort and loads others before that as well, back to his UFC run where he beat anyone and everyone. So, look, it is one of those fights where we'll tell a lot, I suppose, about Lyoto, and we'll tell a lot about Fabian Edwards with who wins this fight. Because Fabian, a big issue in Fabian's game, I think, has been his inability to kind of let everything out. And his inability to maybe take the chances when he's given the chances. Because I don't think anyone can can deny how good Fabian Edwards is. He is a brilliant all-around fighter. I followed Fabian since his amateur days. Graham McDonald, who co-hosts the Severe May podcast with me, I think he was over there and he saw Fabian fighting in an amateur fight or something, and he kind of put me onto him, and I was watch a few of his amateur fights, and obviously being Leon's brother, we all kind of knew him anyway, in terms of, he's a brother coming up, and you hear the rumours, but then go and watching him, and he won a fight for armbar, I think it was in the amateurs, where he was losing and he came back, and he has that ability. I just feel like he's maybe, and this is a weird thing to say, maybe he's tried to be a little bit too much like Leon in his professional career, and I think he needs to get away from that a bit. Leon is a very good structured fighter. I think Fabian needs to be very structured, but a little bit less structured, if you get me. I think he needs to throw bigger shots. I think he needs to let out his power and athleticism. I think he's a better athlete than Leon. I think he hits harder than Leon. I think he's more well-rounded in as a total fighter than Leon as well. I think Fabian is brilliant. Fabian is a brilliant fighter, but he just feels like he's holding it in a bit. And he's one of these guys at one stage in his career, things are going to click for him and he's going to be absolutely brilliant. If that doesn't happen here though, it's a tricky tie, because Lyoto Machida is the type of guy who will stand on the outside, and if you're not able to break down that distance, or if you're not able to let your shots go when he comes in, then he'll just bamboozle you for 15 minutes and suddenly you've lost the decision. So Fabian Edwards is going to need to throw his shots. He's going to need to land his shots in this fight. There's no standing around watching Lyoto Machida. There absolutely isn't. Even if it's not the same Lyoto, even if it's an older version, a slower version of Lyoto Machida, it doesn't matter how slow or old he is. He's still very hard to hit. if you don't throw those shots, if you don't let the hands go, if you don't be proactive as well in different areas against him. And I think that's the key to this fight. If Fabian can let his hands go and not necessarily get into a firefight with Lyoto, because Lyoto won't get into firefights anyway, but if you exchange with Lyoto, I think it's been shown, especially in that Bellator fight, you can be faster than him, and I think Fabian hits hard enough as well to make Lyoto start thinking about it, and he's going to need to do that, but he needs to do that. He really, really does need to do that. And this, as I said, it's a very telling fight. If Lyoto loses this, I think it's his first career loss in a long time against someone who isn't right at the top of the division, like Bader, Davis, Mousasi are right there at the top. Not to say that Fabian can't be, but at the moment he's probably, he's 5 or 6 back or whatever it might be, and still kind of an up-and-comer. To me, I think he's very good, and I'll favour him to win this fight, but he needs to do it, and it'll be that fight as well. If Fabian wins it, I think something will have to have clicked, and then he'll be on his way up as well. So, an interesting fight there. Let's talk about the main event. MVP Michael Venom Page against Logan Storley. It's a massive fight for MVP, and I talk about proving things. This is a proving fight for MVP, and he's supposed to fight Yaroslav Amosov, and I mentioned at the start, obviously he's over in Ukraine fighting, and maybe that would have been a better fight in terms of proving it to the masses. Logan Storley, I think if he beats Logan Storley, I don't think people will acknowledge how great of a win it is, because maybe they don't know Logan Storley as well as they'd know, say, an Amosov. Obviously Amosov beat Logan Storley. It was a very close fight. I think it could have gone to Logan Storley. Honestly, it was that close. I went back and watched it a couple of weeks ago when Storley was fighting. So the win against Storley, I think, proves MVP is one of the best fighters in the world, if he can win the fight. And we will get to the fight in a second. But it's been a career for MVP. And I said it about Paul Daley, but Paul Daley has fought some very, very good people in between fighting some maybe not so very good people. MVP's only fought very good people once or twice in his career. Like, he's fought cans, literally, at times, journeymen, the 15th ranked guy in the division when he was ranked number 1 or 2. That is a stain on the career of MVP. I am someone who believes those fights are necessary, but up until a point. I think you should have your experience, get your fights, become comfortable as an MMA fighter, and then take the step up. But when the step up almost never comes, that's just a terrible, terrible, terrible thing for your career. And it feels like MVP for a long time was that. Now, that has changed. He fought, obviously, Lima. He's forced to fight Amosov here. He's now fighting Storley. So that has changed, and long may it continue. And hopefully it stays like that. So for him to win this fight, I think it kind of proves that his way maybe worked for him, and it will prove that he is one of the best fighters in the world to people in the know. Logan Storley, one of the best fighters in the world, one of the best wrestlers fighting in mixed martial arts today, and if MVP beats him, it's a very, very good win. So it's a massive fight for MVP's career. He's getting on as well. Now in age, he's 35 years of age, and the way he fights, and he's a speed merchant, all about fast twitch movement. If he doesn't do it now, he might never do it. So this is a massive fight in his home country as well. Huge for MVP, and a big proven fight for him. So the fight itself, I suppose, look, this is an easy matchup to talk about. MVP, this point-fighting, elusive, light on his feet, long striker from the outside, switching stances, hands down, high kicks, spinning kicks, front kicks, jabs from the outside, runs away, tries not to get taken down at all costs, non-stop, can go for 5 rounds running around. That's him. Logan Storley, wrestler. Take you down, put you on the ground, destroy you on the ground. We saw in his last fight, his striking has improved, but we can forget about that for this fight. He will not want to be striking with Michael Venom Page. He will be trying to take him down early and often, as he should. That's the crux of this fight. You don't need any more of a breakdown than that. Anyone else who will break this fight down longer than that is probably lying to you, or probably giving you more intricacy than you actually needed. That's this fight. And it comes down to, can Storley take him down, hold him down, and beat him down? And if he can, he'll win the fight. Absolutely, 10 times out of 10. If he can't, MVP will beat him 10 times out of 10 as well, I think. He's too good on the feet. He's too long. He's too strong. You know, he's strong. When I say strong there, I think he's a very, very strong guy on the feet, and he's actually good takedown defense against the cage as well, and he can get up when taken down. So when I said, you know, take him down, keep him down and beat him down, I mean that. You know, if he doesn't keep him down or if he doesn't beat him down, MVP will get back up and he'll be fighting well as well. So it's not going to be that easy for Logan Storley if he does get the fight to the ground. It certainly won't be easy for MVP as well on the feet, because there will be the threat of that takedown and Storley can hit. So, you know, but it is one of those. If he can keep it on the feet for 25 minutes, MVP will win in 25 minutes or less. And if he can get it on the ground for large periods of that 25 minutes, Logan Storley absolutely will win. Get it on the ground and keep it on the ground for large periods. So yeah, that's it, and that's the whole card. A very interesting one. Obviously, we were supposed to have Jason Jackson versus Douglas Lima. Unfortunately, that fell out due to injury, and Carcagna fell out as well. But we're still left with a pretty good card and a meaningful one as well. So I will leave it there. Enjoy the fights this weekend. My name is Sean Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.